Hi everyone and welcome to day 4 of Growth Week. My name is Jenna and I help lead on international development for the UK Agri-Tech Centre. And today's focus is on growing your business overseas through in-market tests and trial to help break down barriers to entry. This session will be showcasing the works that were conducted in Bahrain earlier this year, where we worked in partnership with the Ministry of Municipalities Affairs and Agriculture Bahrain and the British Embassy Bahrain to test and trial novel agri-tech solutions to address key in-market challenges. So the aim of this project was to contribute to Bahrain's food security objectives by introducing novel agri-tech solutions and support their uptake through knowledge exchange, demonstration, awareness, training and market entry. So to kick things off, we conducted an in-country market assessment of the agricultural landscape and a review of the agri-tech solutions to support local food security needs in Bahrain. And this was done through a range of stakeholder interviews. A number of key challenges were identified in this process, including the heavy reliance on imported produce, thus the risk to food security, the extreme environmental conditions and the short growing season in the country, the limited land availability, the energy demands and water scarcity, and the challenges around technology adoption and education. And from these challenges, we identified opportunities for international collaboration between the UK and Bahrain for knowledge exchange and an open innovation process to help address these challenges. This then led to the publication of an in-depth market report and subsequent knowledge exchange visit, where we welcomed personnel from the ministry to the UK. During this time, an open call was launched to address the affirmation challenges, and applicants were sieved down to our top 10. These top 10 companies were then invited to pitch live to our pitch day panel, and 3 technologies were selected to showcase at the Agri-Tech Incubator in Bahrain. These technologies were then shipped, and we travelled with the 3 companies out to Bahrain for the in-country setup, the calibration, data gathering, demonstration, training, and stakeholder engagement, with the ultimate goal of market entry not just into Bahrain, but to the wider region. And through this process, 3 technologies were selected, including Ostara, Polysolar, and Zayndu, and today we're joined by representatives from each company who's going to give an overview of what was delivered. First up, we have James Perry, Commercial Lead for Ostara, who'll be speaking about the process they went through to retrofit current Bahraini infrastructure with their fully automated advanced environment and irrigation control system. So James, over to you.
Hello, my name is James. I'm the Commercial Lead at Ostara. Ostara is a control and automation software that is built specifically for greenhouses. About this time last year, we delivered a project in Bahrain in collaboration with the UK Agri-Tech Centre and the Ministry of Agriculture in Bahrain, where we were looking at how we can address some of the challenges that Bahraini growers face and use some of the latest technology in order to overcome those. Today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project that we delivered in Bahrain last year as part of a collaboration between the Ministry of Agriculture there in Bahrain, the UK Agri-Tech Centre, and a few UK businesses. So I just wanted to start off by saying, talking a little bit about the challenges that Bahraini growers face and what we've done to help combat some of those. So the first is they want to grow more higher quality foods in the space that they've already got. So Bahrain is a country, like many others, that rely quite heavily on imports, and food security is becoming an increasing issue for various reasons, whether that's the changing climate or geopolitical things. But with Ostara, you're able to grow more with the space that you've got. So how we're able to do that is that if you've got a greenhouse and you are just putting some plastic or glass over a field, that's all very well. But what you really need to be able to do is control different elements of that farm, whether that's the venting system, the fans, the irrigation pumps, the fertilizer content you're supplying to that crop, in order to create that optimal environment and provide exactly the right amount of water to mean that you can grow as much as you can and make sure that that's of a good quality. I mentioned water just then. Another key issue of the region is water efficiency and making sure that the finite water that you have is being used as effectively as possible. Typically, what happens in the industry is that people overwater their plants to ensure that they don't dry out. What we're able to do with the Star is put sensors within the substrate or within the crops to understand exactly how much water is within that rootstock, and then supply the right amount of water at all times so that you're not wasting any. And then finally, reduce crop loss in extreme weather. The interesting thing about this project is, I guess it goes without saying, but the Bahraini climate is very different to the UK climate, which we're a bit more familiar with. But for them, the real problems are increased heat and temperature spikes that can completely dry up and wipe out crops, or sandstorms are the other thing that they really suffer from. And again, all of that can wipe out crops. So what we're trying to do is build a robust system that's able to look at data, look at the weather station, look at the weather forecast, and be able to make proactive decisions to protect the crops. So if we know that there's going to be a temperature spike later in the day, or we know if a sandstorm is coming, you can set safety limits in order to protect those crops. So yeah, to go into a little bit more about what Ostara is, there are kind of three key elements to it. In its most sort of basic form, it's a monitoring system. So what I mean by that is that you're able to connect any sensors to our platform and read that data in real time. So for this project, we've got a weather station, it's reading the outside weather. We had temperature and humidity sensors that measure the environment within the greenhouse. We had light level sensors, so you know exactly how much light is entering the greenhouse, and an array of different irrigation sensors, so things like soil moisture sensors, EC, which is basically the fertilizer content sensors, pH sensors, and yeah, also soil temperature sensors. So you're able to take all that data in and be notified when it falls out of that optimal range that you've set. The kind of next stage of that is looking at that data that you've got and being able to make control decisions from wherever you are in the world, from our web application or phone application. So, for example, let's say that temperatures really spike and you're able to see, wow, it's 40 degrees Celsius on Ostara. What you can do is see in this image that we've got some sliders, and you can move those sliders and open them to open the events to hopefully allow some of that hot air out, or to turn on exhaust fans that then blow the hot air out. So you can be there from wherever you are in the world and use that data to make decisions. But where Ostara is really clever is on the automation side. And what we're doing here is we're setting the optimal environment that we need to grow the crops. So in Bahrain, we're growing tomatoes, and they have all of the information about what is the best environment to grow a tomato in. They then set these limits, and Ostara will look at all of the different elements that the farm has. So look at things like the venting, fans, and all of the irrigation to make sure that you're keeping within that optimal environment. And similarly with the irrigation, I'll go into the irrigation a bit more, but what you want to do is basically supply exactly the right amount of water at all times and make sure the crop doesn't dry out. So you're able to set those targets and basically sit back, and Ostara will do all the hard work for you. The more data that Ostara gets and the more we're able to process that and report it, the better it gets. So we've got an AI algorithm working in the background that's constantly learning more about the environment and how the environment reacts to different changes in weather, and is constantly improving. Working with the growers in Bahrain, you learn a lot about what are their challenges and how they would like the system to perform. So we're looking at the environment here, and I guess again different to the UK, where we're probably using plastic and metal and things to warm up the environment. They're actually trying to cool it down, and they have a really clever system to do that. And I'm just going to explain it quickly as to how we do it. So the outside temperature is very warm, and what you're trying to do is cool the air within it, to bring down the temperature within the greenhouse and get rid of all of the hot air. So how it works during the kind of the height of the day when it's hottest is you have side vents that are always open. And what these side vents are doing are drawing in all of the warm air from outside. And that's being drawn in pretty much at crop level, which you can see in the bottom left-hand side. What's happening with the cooling system is that they have a really clever, what they're called pad and fan. And essentially, you have cold water dropping down the kind of mesh that you can see here, and then fans that are pulling that cold air through across the crops. So we're taking in that warm air, that's being cooled by the pad and fan, and then that's being blown across um, across the crops to make sure that they're kept cool. Working kind of working alongside that, we have a shading screen. So that is basically stopping all of the sunlight reaching the crops. Most of these crops don't like direct sunlight, and the shading screen disperses some of that light across the crops, and it also means that it keeps cooler. So we have a shading screen that's working alongside that, and then you also have a number of fans on the top of the greenhouse. So that's removing all of the hot air that's rising. And it's sort of the process and the combination of all of these things that are able to keep that environment cool and keep within those optimal bounds which the crops want to grow in. Looking at the irrigation side of things, so you can see this picture in the middle is what they had beforehand. We've basically ripped out that controller where they were able to just quite blindly say that they want to set irrigation on for 5 minutes every hour, rather than just sort of guessing what they think is about right. Now what we're doing is using data that they're getting from the sensors to apply exactly the right amount of water when the crop needs it. So the goal is to basically maintain a straight line in the day and in the night, so that you're not overwatering the crops and wasting water, and you're not underwatering the crops and drying them out. So what the growers in Bahrain are able to do now is to set their strategy based on the soil moisture within the bags, and set kind of timings and irrigation strategies based on that. So it's a lot better informed, and they're doing it based off actual real world data rather than sort of just finger in the air guesswork. So yeah, that's a brief overview of Ostara and what we're doing in Bahrain. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Hamish Watson, CEO of Polysolar, who will be sharing the process that they went through for the installation of their novel, flexible and transparent solar panels in the test site, helping meet customer energy needs, but not compromising growing systems. So Hamish, I'm going to pass it over to you now.
Good day, everybody. I'd like to introduce Polysolar and talk about agrivoltaics and the projects that we've been doing in Bahrain on our agrivoltaic technology. Just as a brief introduction, Polysolar is a Cambridge-based UK technology company. We're developing next generation photovoltaic materials and processes. And we are an established building integrated photovoltaic company globally. That's where you include the solar within the building material. We have recently launched a range of new technologies for agrivoltaics. And I want to talk about specifically our lightweight flexible solar that we've developed for polytunnels and greenhouses in the Middle East. Just as a brief understanding, building integrated photovoltaics and agrivoltaics is where your solar is providing more than just the benefit of generating power. It's also providing a substitutional building material that in agricultural case is actually improving yields as opposed to just sitting alongside. So a sheep grazing under a solar panel, we do not classify as agrivoltaics. We believe agrivoltaics is where you have no negative impact on the agricultural yield. We have developed a technology based on thin film photovoltaics that is deployed on polytunnels. It's deployed by the farmer in the field in order to provide electricity directly into the field to enable automation in horticulture. That means that the farmer themselves can move it around as they require it. It's generating power that can be used directly by the farmer or alternatively exported back to the grid. And it is a very efficient solar generator itself. As I mentioned, we work in glass houses as well as polytunnels, and we also have field mount and aquaculture solutions for agrivoltaics. So what we found by putting these panels on the roof, and this is in Bahrain's case, this is awfully true, is that we're getting a higher yield, and we've run these trials very much in the UK on soft fruits. The trials we've been, and there we're getting a 20% increase in yields. In Bahrain, we've put in 2 polytunnel cum greenhouse solutions, both on a private farm and on the state trial sites. In total, each installation is around about 5-6 kilowatts. And we've been growing both tomatoes and salads under those things. The technology was also demonstrated at the ministry's garden at the garden show in February 2025. In terms of our activities in Bahrain, we've been expanding both in Bahrain and into the Middle East more generally. The crops that we're looking at in particular in the region are tomatoes and salads, but we're also interested in other crops. Clearly, protective agriculture is increasingly important, both in the Middle East as well as worldwide, due to global warming, where extreme weather conditions, high temperatures, and reduced availability of water, etc., is all driving a move to protective agriculture. What we're doing is providing that power that you have to have when you have protective agriculture. It's providing the power to then provide the irrigation at one level, but right through to automation, robotics, etc. else that you can then deliver when you're in a protective environment. And we're building those systems both in Bahrain and around the world currently. To give you a little bit of an idea on the returns and the economics behind that, so 1 hectare of polytunnel, where we have around about 20% shading coverage within the actual polytunnels, is generating somewhere in the region of 850 megawatt hours of electricity over a year. So in most cases, that is enough to power most agricultural operations already just as 1 hectare. In terms of that as a revenue, that can be up to 5 million over 25 years. And in terms of the cost, it's similar to a conventional solar field array. We're looking at a payback in Bahrain just on the electricity alone of somewhere in the region of 5 years. But that's excluding the actual gains that we're getting elsewhere. So those gains are reflected both in the crop yields. So we're getting higher yields both on salads and tomatoes. We're getting less damage to the crops through direct sunlight. There's also reduced transpiration within the plants themselves, and their photosynthesis levels are optimal. That means we're using less water. We're, as a result, using also less fertilizer, etc. And that in itself is giving us higher yields and therefore a return on that side. So we're looking at a return here that can be almost instantaneous. If you're not having to have a grid upgrade, you're getting the power and you're getting a higher yield. So that's a very brief outline of what we've been doing in Bahrain and what we're replicating around the world. Advice to others in the agri-tech arena going overseas. From our perspective, it's very much farmers are conservative. They need proof, and they need proof that it works in their own environment. So one does need to do localized trials with the farmers directly to convince them. It also requires persistence. Farming is not just an annual activity, but you're having to plan 2 or 3 years ahead for each crop, and therefore it is a slow sales process. But we do recommend going overseas. There is an appetite definitely for new technology around the world to improve farming. So that's a very brief summary, and thank you very much for your time.
And finally, we have Robert Woods, Head of Business Development at Zayndu. who'll be talking us through Zayndu's advanced air seed priming technology for improved crop productivity and profitability. Rob, over to you.
My name's Robert Woods. I am in charge of business development for a company called Zayndu. We're an agri-tech company based in Loughborough in the Midlands of the UK. The territory that I look after essentially is the Middle East region as well as Europe. Middle East is a broad definition. It can be as far, shall we say, west as Morocco, across then the bottom of the Mediterranean and into what I'm going to call the Middle East countries, typically United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, that space there. So our company, Zayndu, we are essentially a seed treatment company. Our technology is unique, and there's a few challenges in that space, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So if we look at what we do and how we do it, our company was founded in 2019. We've got a team of about 30 odd people, not very large. We treat seed on site on the farm. So most important point, it's important to have a relationship with the farm, with the key people involved in the farm. We treat about 220 different species. So what do? We have got a program called activated air. Activated air comes essentially from lightning. And in very simple terms, when you put the seed into our machine on the farm, the activated air program, which produces what's called cold plasma, removes the outer layer of the seed. It creates small micro holes in the seed and essentially primes the seed. Here's your benefit. Increased permeability and efficient embryo, that's the seed root and shoot, rehydration results in more vigorous plant growth. There is our machine. It's about the size of a fridge. You place the seed here in the drum. You place the drum over what we call the latch. You put down the lid, and there's specific programs according to the type of crop. So be it lettuce, basil, tomatoes, etc. The operator pushes the button and the machine works. It takes about 3 to 4 hours to treat the seed. So here's an actual example. Pea seeds, untreated, and this is treated. So here's your benefit to a grower. Faster crop cycle, increased plant growth, more crop in terms of less energy. So typically customers look to us towards bumping their germination, but most importantly, the slides here, more crop. More crop means more profit. More crop means flexibility associated with marketing their product accordingly. We have a number of different examples that I can show here where we've got production advantages, etc. We've got advantages in terms of the quality of the crop that is grown. And here's a practical example from a very large grower in Ireland showing the difference between the untreated and treated. So that is a commercial example. We work with each of these people accordingly. There's another example. This is what we do. Our machine comes out packed, pre-packed like that. There's our office here. And we then have a typically 1 to 3 day installation and training period. So the customer then is totally au fait with working with us and working with our technology. But it doesn't end there. We then set up trials and we set up regular meetings with customers to go through what they're doing, how they're doing it, because their production changes, what they grow changes, and we want to then optimize the results of our technology in their growing conditions. So that's about us. So a couple of things we did in Bahrain. We have installed one of our machines in the facility. The Bahraini market is small. There are not a large number of farmers in that region. But typically, I can say within the Middle East region, they have the same characteristics in terms of how you interact with them across the whole of the Gulf, and the Gulf region. So most importantly, what we have done with the department, we are actually in the process right at the moment of putting together trials in the government department of various crops. Example, lettuce. Lettuce is typically a crop that's grown in that region in large amounts in greenhouses. There are no vertical farms in that region. So our target audience is farmers that are in greenhouses. What we're going to be doing is bringing farmers in to what I'm going to call a mini field day and showing them the results. From there, we're going to be using those results to then approach the farmers that are there to then put our machines into their operations in a commercial level and working with those farmers. So that's a lot. In summary, this is a relationship market. Start with teams, but move on to actual visits. Go and see these people on their farm, ask a lot of questions. Make sure that they fully give you as much information before you arrive, so you're armed with an understanding of their business. Also make sure that you're not clashing, I'm going to use that word, with religious holidays and those sort of periods, because very difficult to talk to people then. The other thing to also be aware of is summertime in the Middle East is somewhat horrific in terms of temperatures. Try and stay away in that period. But fundamentally, if you can get people going in terms of utilizing and using your product, then go ahead and use social media to promote, with their permission, promote them. Farmers in that region are very aware of what's going on in the region, and there's quite a network. And if you can get some sort of endorsement or some sort of testimonial, that really helps. So in summary, there's a whole range of things there to consider. But as a market, the people are very approachable, very pleasant, very friendly. But it's a matter of making sure you work within that framework to get the results that you need.
A massive thank you to all of our speakers today, to James, Hamish and Robert for sharing their experience in this project. It's a fantastic example of cross-industry and government collaboration and the important role that test and trial plays to advance market entry and help UK businesses grow. We have some exciting announcements on this in the coming weeks, so please do keep your eyes peeled on the international page on the UK Agri-Tech Centre website. And I just want to finish by saying a massive thank you to the Ministry of Municipalities Affairs and Agriculture Bahrain and to the British Embassy Bahrain for their support, and to the internal UK Agri-Tech Centre team, especially Kaisa and Emma, who worked alongside me on the delivery of this project. And finally, thanks to all of you for joining us today. Thank you very much.